Welcome to PeachJar's third webinar in our Digital Excellence series. My name is Kara Ailey, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of PeachJar, which means that the content of this webinar on omnichannel marketing is near and dear to my heart. In fact, you're all present here today due to PeachJar's own omnichannel marketing efforts, and I'm thrilled to have you. So I'm definitely looking forward to helping kind of define what omnichannel marketing means for you and your program, and we'll share some nice examples of omnichannel marketing kind of out in the wild. I'll also give you some useful tools, I think, in order to get your own omnichannel marketing efforts going if you're not doing so already. And note that this webinar will be emailed out to you tomorrow so that you can listen to it again if you want to, or so that you can easily take advantage of any resources or websites that I mentioned. I'll definitely be sharing a few of those. Separately, I think everyone's muted, but I'd be grateful if we can hold any questions until the end of the webinar. We'll definitely have ample time for Q&A. So with that, let's get started. All right, so some of us on this call remember the old days when the primary channels for a customer's engagement with a brand were really limited to kind of in-store and on the phone. My, how times have changed. We're living in such a digital world now, and as all of us are really brand ambassadors, we need to be prepared to meet our customers where they're spending their time. So today's customer is pretty much always digitally connected in one way or another. You know, she no longer really enters just one digital channel. Instead, she's continuously on multiple channels. So to truly optimize, how your customer experiences your brand, you really need to ensure that they have a consistent experience across all of these many channels. And that is how we define omnichannel marketing. It's really the assurance of a seamless and consistent user experience of your brand across all channels and at all times. All right, so today's customer, the parent in your case, is also very much in evaluate and interact mode all over the internet before they purchase, because they know how much information is readily available at their fingertips about you, about your competitors, and they want to assess all options and information before making a purchase decision. I'm sure we all kind of, operate similarly. According to Gartner Group, a company's digital strategy will actually influence at least 80% of their discretionary spending, which is pretty significant. And interestingly, customer experience counts for 47% of customer loyalty. So with that, it would stand to reason that you want to, have the very best customer experience available within all appropriate digital channels, right? So with all of these digital channels and engagement points, which ones are the most important to have that consistent presence in? Let's take a look here. So we're going to talk about them at a high level here, and then I'll get into some specific methods and approaches for each channel a little bit later. To begin with, you definitely want to ensure that your website is optimized for desktop, tablet, and mobile. And I'll show you more on how to do that in a little bit here. If you have a physical location where customers engage with you, you'll want to be sure that your brand is consistently represented there, whether in store, on the field, or otherwise. You also want to ensure that parents can very easily reach customer service for your program, for as much of the day as possible, certainly the business day, business hours, and that your customer service voice and script is really representative of your brand, both on the phone and via chat on your website if you have that. Now, and most importantly, and I think the primary reason we're here, let's talk about the digital channels. For these, you're going to be generating compelling, original content on a regular basis because, as they say, and I'm sure you've all probably heard this, content is king in digital marketing. So that's content on your website, your social media sites, your blog, in your email marketing efforts, in your Google search results, and I'll get into more of that soon, and then video content. These are all channels you're going to want to focus on in order to truly be omni-channel. All right. So I'll dig in, as I said, to each of these channels a little more in depth, particularly the digital ones shortly. But first, we're going to dig into some real-life examples of omnichannel marketing. All right. So you may have heard mention of the notion of responsive design when it comes to websites. This is really, guys, where it all begins. And all that responsive means is that whomever designed and developed the site built it so that it would be compatible and essentially look the same regardless of device, screen size, operating system, or browser. I don't know if any of you recall life before responsive design when, on your phone, sometimes you had to use the scroll bar to move left and right on a screen to see the whole thing. Kind of a hideous user experience. So since 30% of people, and this number is growing, now tend to transact via mobile phone, responsive design is definitely essential. Fortunately, for those of you who have invested in those templated or kind of out-of-the-box websites or e-commerce solutions, most of those today fall into the responsive category. But for those who don't, in a few minutes, I'm going to give you the URL to a site where you can check to see if your own site is responsive, as well as some resources to help make it responsive if it's not yet. But note that most current designers and developers now really understand how to build websites with responsive in mind. Okay. So we just looked at how to ensure your omni-channel kind of baseline is intact. That's your desktop, mobile, and tablet experiences being responsive and similarly reflective of your brand. Now we're going to take a look at the implementation of campaigns across channels. The one you're about to see is for a summer learning campaign really built to address the school districts who aren't yet working with PeachJar. This is one of our campaigns in order to show the importance of getting your summer and after school programs in front of parents so their kids don't lose momentum in the summertime. So we started with an email on the actual National Summer Learning Day, kind of making it ever more poignant or timely, I guess. Then we ensured that we were present on social media, certainly, and that we had a really nice and engaging blog post as well. All of these channels have calls to action that point to a landing page on our website that contains a video. The video really kind of speaks to the value of PeachJar to schools, parents, and program providers like you, especially for summer learning. It then has a call to action, you can see it at the bottom, to schedule a live demo with PeachJar. So this call to action has been hugely effective for us, as was this campaign. And interestingly, the campaign wasn't directly pitching the PeachJar service, but really sharing why your programs matter so much to kids, both during the school year and outside of it, and to sort of subtly encourage schools to onboard with PeachJar to make sure parents know about your important programs in the summer if they are in fact available. So a little bit of a softer sell. Next, we'll move to last month's webinar. We did a campaign around that, and the webinar really exists as a marketing channel in and of itself, I should note. To promote it, we started with updates to the site where you could register for the webinar, and then an email marketing campaign as well to promote the webinar. We then carried that to our blog, and Blackboard, a large ed tech company that you may have heard of, really found great value in the content. So they wanted to share it with their audience, and they allowed us to be what's known as sort of guest bloggers with this same content that was on our own blog. This was really a nice opportunity for us because it generated new customers for us as a result. We then also promoted the webinar on social media, of course. And I would say that, it was great because Blackboard actually also did. They wanted to draw attention to the blog post as well, where then the webinar, the recorded webinar was at the bottom of it. So we really got a lot of extra reach because Blackboard promoted us and allowed us to guest blog. So pro tip here is that partnering with with an organization or an influencer during campaigns, and influencers are folks who have just a ton of followers in your target audience, really can help aid you in reaching more parents and certainly in garnering more customers. So these are just a couple of examples of omni-channel campaigns. The reality is you're not going to hit probably every single channel with every campaign or marketing effort, but the key is to try to be as consistent with your messaging, your look and feel in all possible digital and offline environments at all times. So, use a similar color palette and imagery and tone in the content, as you can kind of see that we've done here. All right. So now for the good stuff. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on how to set up your own omni-channel marketing strategy, as well as how you can optimize with tools in these different channels we've just discussed. All right. So when you're considering your omni-channel strategy, let's just assume you're starting from scratch. Most of you probably won't be, I'm sure, but you can refine your existing strategy based on what I'm about to say. The first step in building your omni-channel strategy is really in identifying who your business's target audience is. I'll guess that, excuse me, for most of you, if not all of you, parents are really a primary target. Next, you'll want to determine which channels you'll plan to target your audience in. The ones we've highlighted today are kind of key for parents. For social media, though, definitely do your research on where your specific target audience is spending time. For example, Snapchat probably isn't a great place for you to spend your dollars marketing to parents, because that's more of a place where teens tend to hang out. Third step, you'll want to define your brand's voice, look, and feel, and any associated imagery that you'll feel will help your audience kind of best connect with your brand. So let's see here. And what's also really important is the notion of kind of generating a style guide so that you and your designers and your marketing teams use consistent fonts, imagery, logo, color palette, and just an overall voice and tone throughout your work. You can Google style guide for you know, a template or an example of what that actually would look like. All right. Next step, you're going to want to define the goals for your brand, and goals that can really be measured. You're going to do this for each campaign as well, because you know the goal of each campaign is really to be more successful than you were with the last one. Because every time you should be kind of learning something by analyzing your metrics, you know, testing subject lines, doing that kind of thing. Then you're going to, and I mean in reference to an email marketing campaign, testing subject lines. Next, you're going to want to build, you know, an editorial calendar. So this really just kind of defines the content and types of campaigns that you're going to be running throughout the year. And you can really, once you generate that campaign calendar, you can start to ideate on content for those campaigns, you know, at an early stage, and really have the time and the bandwidth to prepare your assets, your creative assets, for all these different channels you're going to launch them in. Then you'll begin your campaigns, analyzing the results of each one and making sure that you're, as I mentioned, really refining your strategy in each channel as you learn from the results of each campaign. And last but not least, it's all about lather, rinse, analyze, and repeat, guys. So with that, we're going to look more specifically at each channel with some tips for really optimizing your strategy in each one. Okay, you probably recognize this screen. We talked a little bit earlier about the importance of ensuring your website's responsive, okay? So the key here is that it really needs to perform well on mobile devices. There was a recent study by Geo Digital that showed that 57% of consumers would not purchase from a retailer that didn't have a mobile-friendly site. That's a pretty significant percentage of people. In addition, 40% of consumers will go to a competitor's site after a bad mobile experience. So mobile, to see if your site is responsive and to see if it works, and you know, in these different channels and looks as you might see this site here, you can go to a website called, and the URL is at the bottom, it's essentially mi.responsivedesign.is. And this website will allow you to really kind of just plug in your URL for your website, and then it'll spit out what you're seeing here. The site that I'm showing here is called Cause Engine. And note that when you go to MI Responsive Design, when you type in your URL, you're definitely going to want to make sure you have the HTTP and the colon and the dashes before the actual URL. For some reason, it sometimes doesn't work if you don't do that. All right. So as I mentioned, I typed in causeengine.com on here. Causeengine.com, the reason I picked this one, guys, is because it's an organization that actually provides freelance marketing, design, and development assistance for nonprofits. So it could be useful to you if your site isn't in fact responsive, or if you just want some extra assistance for your business but don't want to pay for a full-time employee. All right, and then there's another one for folks who are for-profits, and it's called Upwork.com. This is another freelancer website, and this is for for-profits and nonprofits alike. So definitely take a look at that if you need some freelance assistance. All right, so to make the argument further for mobile phones, even though I'm pretty sure I probably don't have to, we're already closing in on, I think I mentioned this a little earlier, about 30% of people in that 25 to 44 age bracket using their mobile phones to purchase things now, and this is on the grow. These stats don't include purchases made on tablets either, which is another major device segment. So all of this is simply to say, be mobile ready so people can transact on your website via their mobile phone or other desktop devices. All right, so as far as email marketing is concerned, we all know we need it, but why? Well, according to a recent Blackboard study, a whopping 87% of parents said that email is the preferred channel for receiving info about their children. And then another 89% of marketers say that email is their primary channel for lead generation. and 64% rate marketing, email marketing as the most effective channel for them. So those are pretty compelling numbers on behalf of email marketing. And listen, I have to do a little bit of a shameless plug here for PeachJar. To put it into context, that's exactly the service that PeachJar offers you. It's parent lead generation via email marketing. But I should say you absolutely can and should still be running your own campaigns to nurture your existing customers and also to garner new ones. And then there's social media. So you already know that marketing via social media is important. Three Reasons actually took up an entire webinar a couple months ago with PeachJar, but at a high level it's key for a few reasons. For starters, many of your customers are using social media literally all day. You know, they keep Facebook open, you know, behind the scenes while they're doing their work, right? So meet them where they are with interesting content and offers, not necessarily via, you know, a Facebook or Twitter paid ad campaign, but I'm more talking about the content on your social media feeds. You know, with the right strategy and the right content, you'll really create passionate brand ambassadors in your own customers, and they will beget more customers as they share your content and comment on it. Now, interestingly, a great deal of customer service also happens via social media. You guys probably are noticing that. You really must respond to the questions or concerns that people post on your social media sites because and some of you may have experience with this, if customers don't get a response and pretty quickly, they kind of get upset and sometimes they'll write negative content in response. That definitely doesn't look good for your brand because other potential customers might see you know, that negative feedback. So this is pretty key because 78% of consumers actually trust their peers' recommendations online, meaning that if a friend likes or even dislikes a company, you know, by commenting negatively through social media, their friends might be more inclined to check it out or not. A great example is with this company called Sudara. It's a social impact clothing company, and I saw that my friend Virginia liked this company's ad. It could have been a, you know, a posting that they had posted on Facebook, and she liked it. And because I know her to be, you know, extremely active in social causes, I trusted her opinion, and I was inspired to click on this ad and check out the loungewear that Sudara offers. So there's truth to this, right? I should point out too that, like, really the key with social media is in having a consistent presence there. By generating shareable or what we call snackable content. You know, it might be stories about kids who've excelled in your program, fun experiences they've had, or even testimonials from you know, some of the parents whose kids are in your programs. And then, you know, with copy and video alike, you're really creating content that inspires your followers and makes them want to share it. That's key. You want content people want to share because that really winds up kind of garnering new followers and customers for you. So in addition, using social media can be very, very good for your Google search results and search engine optimization overall. Talk about why here. So it might sound funny to say Google search results should be part of your omni-channel marketing strategy, but it's important. You know, many parents, and I'm sure you probably know this, they're going to Google you to find out the skinny on your program before they decide to move forward. They really want, you know, they're looking for positive reviews on your program. They don't want to read negative articles. You know, most users will not click past the first page of Google search results if they've searched for you and really found enough positivity on page 1 to not need to inquire further. So when I mentioned that being on social media can help with Google results, check out this karate school in San Diego. It's called Krav Maga. You'll note that most of their first page results are all about social media, right? You can see that there's Facebook here, there's Yelp, there's YouTube, and LinkedIn here at the bottom. So the reason is that these are all highly search engine optimized sites. Meaning that if you have profiles on their sites, your profile will show up higher in search results when your company's name is Googled. So do ensure you're at least active on, or at a minimum have accounts with these social media sites. Because, you know, if you do happen to have negative articles or reviews written about your business, and every business does, it's just a reality, not all customers are going to be happy all the time, then those negative links can get pushed to pages 2 and 3, simply because you have a presence on these highly optimized social media sites. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, Positive reviews from customers, you'll see off to the right, they're really important because they actually show up very quickly, right, for the person who's Googling you. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. All right. So ask your happy customers. This is really key. Ask happy customers to leave you a review on Google and or Yelp if they're kind enough to do both. You can see it's definitely something a potential customer would see pretty quickly, and it could be a make or break for whether or not they decide to choose you over a competitor who might have been just a little bit more assertive in asking customers for reviews. And I should note before closing on this subject that Google sees about 65% of search engine traffic, with Bing and Yahoo kind of trailing behind. Chances are good that if you're optimized for Google, you're optimized for other search engines, because Google really kind of sets the gold standard and has done its homework. Definitely moving toward world domination. So that's why I've really focused on them here. All right. So we have a couple more segments to go in this webinar. Hopefully no one needs to get up and do any jumping jacks, and I hope that I'm talking at a pace where you can hear me and digest all of this. I'm a little bit of a fast talker. So here we're going to look at quickly the importance of keeping a blog and just ensuring that its messaging is consistent with whatever campaign you might be running at the time. Typically when we're doing a webinar, as you saw, I think from an earlier slide, we'll do a complimentary blog post, social media, and an email campaign on whatever the topic is. And certainly our website will reflect the webinar that's coming up. The key is the content's never exactly the same in each channel. Imagery is consistent, as is the subject matter and the way in which we're talking about it, but you want all content to be complementary so that there's something interesting but slightly different offered in each channel. That way, if the customer does happen to see it in a few channels, they have a varied but consistent experience on whatever subject you're campaigning on. Here, you see a blog post from when we did the recent webinar on how to market to and communicate with millennial parents. It was so popular that, as mentioned earlier, Blackboard shared our blog on their own blog, which pointed to our recorded webinar after the fact. So again, I mentioned that this is known as guest blogging. That's a great way to gain more followers and customers because you're reaching someone else's audience. You can easily do this too by reaching out to blog owners. Very often they have a contact us or contact me button on their blog because they actually are looking for people to help generate content. And you'll want to reach out to people who have some prominence in your domain, not necessarily prominence, but a strong following among your parent audience. And you can either suggest that they leverage content you've already written or suggest to the blog owner that you write on a new topic of interest. Another good thing about guest blogs is that they tend to link back to your website, which is really helpful from an SEO standpoint, search engine optimization. The more relevant links from other sites to yours that exist, and I say relevant because Google really looks at sites that are somewhat related to yours, they weigh those more heavily if they're pointing to you than other sites that might point to you that don't really relate to your content. So blogging in general will also really help with your SEO strategy, especially if you're consistently leveraging your keywords. This will also help with your search rankings on those keywords pretty tremendously. All right, and finally, you may recall that I think 3 of the first page Google results for that karate school, Krav Maga, were YouTube videos. This is really important to know. We're going to talk about video a little bit here. Not only can creating unique video content improve the positive experience of your search results when someone searches for you on Google, as it did here, but it can also create a much more engaging experience for your customers in the different channels. It'll increase, interestingly, it'll increase click-through rates if you use it in your email marketing, and that is by 300% on average. So pretty compelling argument to leverage video in email. It also really helps to keep people on your website for longer if the videos are compelling. So, if parents see students engaging in your program in a video and loving it, they're also that much more likely to enroll their child in your program. So if you haven't created a channel on YouTube yet for your company, you can definitely easily create one and start uploading videos now, like PeachJar's done right here. All of the videos that are you'd find on our website, they're hosted here on YouTube. I think most valuable, probably I would say, are the testimonials. You see one off to the right here entitled PeachJar's Impact on the K-12 Community. For PeachJar, it's, the testimonials are from program providers like yourselves who've had, great experiences growing their programs through us, from school administrators who see the value of PeachJar for parenting kids, and from parents who see the value of your programs for their kids. So it's just another great marketing tool in your arsenal. And interestingly, we actually got a bunch of our testimonials from a contest we ran on Facebook. And this is a little teaser because I'm not going to tell you about that here, but our webinar on December 14th is all about how to very easily create your own video content and more on how to get others to do it for you for free, which is awesome and optimal. You'll see an email on that soon in order to register, but we'll definitely include a link to register in the follow-up email that we send tomorrow that will have this webinar attached to it. Anywho, going back to the purpose of this webinar, definitely make sure that the videos you do generate are branded consistently. It's very important with the rest of your marketing materials. Speak with the same tone, carry the similar imagery, color palette, all of those things that, again, make up your company's style guide. All right, and a side thought, just as we close the webinar, you may also consider monthly webinars like this one if you have a topic that, your parent customers would be interested in learning about on a regular basis. Or you could do one-off webinars if you have an interesting topic. In our case, PeachJar makes sure parents are informed about your awesome programs, but we're also digital experts. So bringing that kind of thought leadership to our wonderful program providers, that's you, really helps, honestly, it makes you more successful, which makes us more successful. So if you're considering a webinar strategy, really think about what your angle might be, not ankle, but angle, that'll engage your audience and help them in some way, because that's what really garners attendance. All right. So with that, we'll conclude the webinar on the importance of omni-channel marketing. Hopefully you guys, had some good takeaways from this particular webinar. And, I'd say that you want to just ensure that consistent brand experience for your parent customers across as many channels as possible, given that all of us as consumers, we're pretty much in as many channels as possible all day long. It's not the way of the future. It's here, it's now. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have right now. My wonderful marketing manager, Susan, is going to be reading some aloud to me. See you, Susan.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me,
Oh,
Kara?
yes, I can hear you now. Thanks, Susan.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so just as a reminder, if anybody in the audience has a question, please submit it in the chat window that you see right there.
No questions yet, sounds like?
Nope.
All right, that must mean I was just so thorough. All right, well, listen, guys, you're more than welcome to send me an email if you have questions following the webinar. I did not show my email here, but not intentionally. It's my name, Kara Ailey, with no dot in the middle, at peachjar.com. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments. More than happy to respond. And I do hope that you'll all be able to attend the webinar on video content on December 14th. Thanks so much, guys.